first semi-final from the 2018 Magic the Gathering World Championship.
Welcome to the tournament floor here at the 2018 World Championships for Magic the Gathering. My name's Riley Knight. I'm joined by Paul Cheon out of Wizards R&D, and I tell you what, we got a showstopper for you getting ready behind us, my friends. The semi-finals are upon us. There are only 4 people remaining in this tournament. That's going to be very closely, very shortly, I should say, winnowed down to just 2, and one of them will be decided in the match we're about to see unfolding us behind us here. First up, as I'm sure you're aware, this guy made it all the way to the final of the last World Championship. He's here to do one better this time around. It is Javier Dominguez out of Spain, back for another chance at the world title. You can see him getting himself ready, pumping himself up. It's a big game of Magic in front of him because he has to overcome one of the greatest players in recent memory, Shahar Shenhar from Israel. This guy is no stranger to success at the highest level with 2 World Championship titles. And these players are seated and ready to do battle here, Paul. We have Javier Dominguez on red-black aggro, the deck of the tournament. Shahar Shenhar, a bird of a different feather for him in God Pharaoh's Gift. What's the heads-up look at this matchup?
Well, Shahar Shenhar actually played against Javier Dominguez earlier, actually in the later rounds of the tournament, and was one of Javier Dominguez's defeats. And when asked, Javier Dominguez said, "Well, you know what? He just kind of destroyed me. You know, he just got God Pharaoh's Gift onto the battlefield on turn 4, and just I had not a whole lot I can do." And if you take a look at Javier's list, he doesn't have Unlicensed Disintegration in his deck, so you know he doesn't have a lot of instant speed ways to just get. He doesn't actually have a lot of ways to just get Lyra Dawnbringer or, you know, a giant Angel of Invention off the battlefield. Kind
of skimping on those unconditional removal spells, but I'll tell you there's one thing he's not skimping on, and that is early aggression. The Spaniard out of the gates like a greyhound here, charging down the track with a Bomat Courier, followed up by a Scrap Heap Scrounger. Shenhar has come prepared for this matchup, Paul. He's playing Sunscourge Champion in the main, a copy of that card in hand for him as well by the look of things. That could be key here as we head into further and further into this semi-final.
Yeah, and Shahar looks like he only has 2 lands in hand, so really is interested in finding a 3rd land this turn. He did actually have the option of playing Administrative Inquiries this turn, but this is kind of the ideal strategic planning, actually. He put a creature into his graveyard, and most importantly, God Pharaoh's Gift. And the way that this deck works is you play one of your multiple ways to put cards into your graveyard. You want to put God Pharaoh's Gift into there, and then play a Refurbish on turn 4 to get God Pharaoh's Gift onto the battlefield.
Now, ideally, of course, you're wanting an Angel of Invention to come back from beyond the grave, but this time, Sunscourge Champion, a worthy recipient of the God Pharaoh's Gift.
Big draw.
A Refurbish off the top here for Shenhar as Dominguez commits further to the border. Classic curve out from him, 1, 2, 3. But let's see if Shenhar can come up with the goods here and slam down that GPG on turn 4.
And he does find that 4th land, and it is an irrigated farmland, so he is actually going to play that tap this turn.
And the Angel of Invention!
So he has it all going. Javier Dominguez does have some interaction, though. He has Doomfall in his deck and a Braid. So this is the turn, right? This is the turn where Shahar Shenhar, on the following turn, will have access to 4 mana to play Refurbish to get that God Pharaoh's Gift onto the battlefield. And Javier Dominguez knows this. So let's take a look at Javier Dominguez's hand and see if he has a way to interact. And he doesn't. He doesn't have an Abrade. He doesn't have a Doomfall this turn. All he can do is attack. But I don't think he's going to be able to race Angel of Invention and then Sunscourge Champion over the course of the next few turns.
Which speaks to the power, Paul, of the White-Blue Gifts deck. Javier has had the perfect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curve out available to him, but Shenhar's going to run all over him if this Angel comes back from the bin here as a 6/6 Flying Vigilance lifelink creature. It is just enormous. Dominguez is going to make hay while the sun shines, trying to poke through that damage, but Shenhar is in a great position to rally magnificently.
Right. Now, keep in mind, though, Shahar is currently at 6 life. But again, next turn, refurbish, God Pharaoh's Gift, get Angel of Invention onto the battlefield, make it into a 6/6 flying, life-linking haste creature with vigilance. And again, I talked about how Javier Dominguez doesn't actually have a way to deal 6 damage to a creature.
Hazard at the fervent comes down for Dominguez. That's a powerful 4-drop, but Shenhar's got one of his own here. We're going to see a refurbish slammed into play, and this God Pharaoh's gift should put Shenhar well and truly in the driver's seat. 4 mana, here comes the sorcery. Target the God Pharaoh's gift, bring back the Angel of Invention. It's Shahar Shenhar's world, and we just live in it.
Right, but there is a window here. Javier Dominguez has an opportunity here to draw a Doomfall, which would be one of the ways to deal with that Angel of Invention. Another thing he could do is draw a removal spell, but now Shahar Shenhar has to make the decision. Does he want to make a giant Angel of Invention to play around said Doomfall, or does he want to just make a giant 6/6 and just attack?
Looks like he's going to go for the latter there, Paul. Of course, the 2 servo tokens are useful blockers and Doomfall insurance here, but Shenhar looks to just get busy here. Buffer his life total, huge 12-point life swing, and a scrap heap scrounger off the top for Dominguez. Even the Glorybringer in his hand isn't going to do it, and you can see the Spaniard is in a world of pain.
Right, but keep in mind that Javier Dominguez does have that Bowmat Courier in play with 4 cards underneath. He might need to cash the Bowmat Courier in for those cards to see if he can find an answer to that Angel of Invention. Now, if he sacrifices that Bowmat Courier, finds a Doomfall, and uses it to exile that Angel of Invention, he will be able to swing in for a decent amount of damage. And then the best creature that Shahar Shenhar can get onto the battlefield on the following turn is a Sunscourge Champion.
Which is not too bad.
Not bad. He's going to
bad.
gain life, but it's certainly no Angel of Invention.
Very true. Shahar Shenhar still with a lot of action in hand, as you can see here. Another Angel of Invention and a Sunscourge Champion and a cast out as well, in case anything goes horrifically wrong. I tell you what, the Israeli player is certainly firing on all cylinders here. But as you've said there, Paul, as you've said, it's not all over.
And keep in mind here, Javier Dominguez actually has a land in his hand that he can play, but it looks like he's thinking about not playing it and sacrificing the Bowmat Courier, because if there are lands underneath the Bowmat Courier, he wants to play that so that he could get low enough in cards to actually attack with Hazard this turn. But
doesn't look like
no interaction in hand.
Pianalar, Glorybringer, and a couple of mountains here for Dominguez. It's not looking good for the Spaniard. He's going to deploy Pianalar, but Shahar Shenhar has just had a terrific draw and more or less uncontested, Paul, is ruling the roost here.
Right, and now, you know, this was the one opportunity, the one turn that Javier Dominguez had to make an interactive play. Now, Shahar Shenhar is going to get an additional creature with no cost of mana, and he gets to play multiple threats in his hand. I mean, his hand is still completely stacked.
Hugely advantageous position here for the former world champion. Trying to get on that 3P tip, as we've said, hunting down the 3rd world championship. And you can tell from what we saw before this match began that he's in the right headspace to get it done today.
What is he?
So 4 mana now. He's going to just, au natural.
Discarding.
Look at
that.
this tech. Au natural Eternalized there for the Sunscourge Champion, discarding a card. The Angel of Invention is going to be the card discarded. +2/+2 to all the creatures. Dominguez reads the writing on the wall, and game number 2 is upon us. Quicker than you can blink there. Shahar Shenhar getting it done in no uncertainty.
That is exactly what you need from, that is exactly the type of draw you need from Shahar. Sure, it was a little bit clunky. He had to play some tap lands, but, Javier Dominguez doesn't have a whole lot of ways to interact in the first game. He does have a Braid, and if he had it, he certainly would have left up the mana, and he does have a couple of copies of Doomfall, but that's it.
So, the first game going the way of the former world champion. Dominguez on the back foot here, it has to be said, but we are playing, unless I'm mistaken, Paul, we're playing best of 5 here. How does that change the way that these matches turn out?
Well, when we play best of 5, you do get to play 2 game 1s. So, I mean, it doesn't really change it too much, I would say. But game 1s matter a little bit more, right? Because you have basically 40% of the potential games that you play are going to be game 1s, and then you have 3 Cyborg games, whereas in a normal match, 33% of the games you play will be those game 1s. Now, Javier Dominguez being on the play, very important, but Shahar, with that amazing draw, was able to break serve there.
So, no sideboarding going on just yet, my friends. We're going to get the players settled, ready for game number 2, and in the meantime, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back here from Las Vegas, the World Championships, in just a few moments. Welcome back to the tournament floor here at the World Championships for Magic the Gathering in 2018. We are coming to you live from Las Vegas in the United States of America. My name's Riley Knight. I'm joined by my friend and coverage colleague Paul Cheon out of Wizards R&D. Paul, we saw Shahar Shenhar on the right-hand side of your screen pick up an early victory with Godfarrow's Gift. Dominguez has to rally here with his red-black aggro list.
Absolutely, and Dominguez not with the perfect mana curve that he had in the first game, but he has, I think, a far more important card in hand in a Braid to actually deal with the potential Godfarrow's Gift. But one thing that I want to point out, though, is this white-blue gift deck, it kind of has that combo draw where you can get that Godfarrow's Gift in play on turn 4. But keep in mind the creatures that it's reanimating or eternalizing are not very expensive. Even if the plan of refurbishing your Godfarrow's Gift gets abraded, you can just start hard casting Angel Inventions and Lyra Dawnbringers, and oftentimes that's still going to be good enough to beat the red-black aggro deck.
Dominguez gets busy with the Heart of Kiran. Shahar Shenhar going to suffer a little bit of a heart attack here as it comes across for 4 damage in the air. And Dominguez curving out nicely now after a slower start with no 1-drop. Another strategic planning here for Shenhar as he filters through his deck. And a Lyra Dawnbringer.
Ooh, he actually has an interesting decision here. Both Fumigate and Lyra Dawnbringer are likely going to be very, very powerful in this board state. It looks like he has an Angel of Invention in hand, so he might lean towards taking the Fumigate because the Angel of Invention does have a very similar effect to the Lyra Dawnbringer.
Shenhar has not set up what we saw in game number 1, a quick flurry of spells that enabled a Godfarrow's Gift on turn number 4. That's not on the agenda this time around, and Dominguez will be thankful for that. But as you say, still plenty of room for Shenhar to maneuver here, and a Braid in the hand of Dominguez, Paul, as you mentioned, going to be a difficult obstacle for Shenhar to overcome.
Yeah, and that's the thing about... That's the thing that you'll see, though, with this white-blue gift deck, is that, it actually isn't that bad at just playing honest Magic as well. Sure, it's not as streamlined as your typical white-blue control deck, but it's got a lot of deck manipulation. It's got a lot of creatures that gain you life, a lot of Angels, Champion of Wits. Like, most of these cards are just good spells to put into your deck, and I think outside of the card Minister of Inquiries, everything else is just a very strong card.
Yeah, it's got a great plan B, I think is a good way to put it, even though if it isn't able to enact its combo finish here. Minister of Inquiries, of course, a very important enabler for the white-blue Godfarrow's Gift list. We're going to see Goblin Chainwhirler, the scourge of Standard, come down now for Dominguez, and immediately crew up the heart here. And Shahar's under he's on a clock here, man.
Yeah, and also note that Javier Dominguez has a Braid in hand, but first of all, he wants to put additional pressure. Secondly, there is no Godfarrow's Gift in Shahar Shenhar's graveyard, so he doesn't have to worry about Shahar casting a Refurbish on turn 4 and get that Lyra Dawnbringer onto the battlefield.
Right, because there's no way that Shahar can put the Godfarrow's Gift in the bin and then bring it back.
Well, he has 3 cards he can look at. He's got the Minister of Inquiries in play. He can mill himself for 3, but you know what? That's pretty unlikely. Yeah. So it is far better to just try to put on additional pressure there instead.
Sunscourge Champion comes down. You're going to buffer Shenhar's life total just a little bit here for 2. And now Dominguez faced with the choice as to how he wants to proceed. As we've said, the Spaniard in a great position and plenty more action in his hand. Another Goblin Chainwhirler, Chandra, Glorybringer. So no matter if he's drawing lands or not, he's still going to have stuff to play all the way from 1 up to 5 there, Paul. Just how you want to draw it up.
Exactly. So now Javier Dominguez just looking and figuring out whether or not he should run out another Chainwhirler this turn. But I think he might want to play it a little more conservatively this time, given that Shahar now has 2 activations from the Minister of Inquiries. Actually curious to see if Javier will fire off that Magma Spray on the Minister of Inquiries that's on the battlefield.
Shenhar going to activate the Minister. Parliament is in session. Refurbish, not the half of the combo you want to hit here, but a Sunscourge Champion is a nice one. Dominguez, on the other hand, is attacking for 5 in the air, so Shenhar has to do something. He's facing lethal next turn.
Yes, but keep in mind, Shenhar drew the 1 copy of Fumigate when he cast that strategic planning. So that Fumigate will be able to gain Shahar 5 life this turn and help him stabilize. But keep in mind, Heart of Kiran, very, very good against sorcery speed removal. Javier Dominguez can definitely refuel by playing that Goblin Chainwhirler in his hand and then attacking with the Heart.
Well, Shenhar priced now into casting this Fumigate. That will buffer his life total, as you say, Paul, but he's still going to take a licking next turn. We'll see if he can keep ticking after
One thing Javier can
cross.
do is sacrifice a Thopter so that Shahar gains 1 less life off the Fumigate from Pia Nalar's sacrifice ability.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to do exactly that here as the Thopter hits the bin.
He's also maybe considering casting a Magma Spray on his Pia Nalar, so Shahar gains even less life. That's something to consider.
I think he's going to do it here as well. Looks like he's going to cast the Magma Spray. Reading what exactly what Fumigate does. He may just go after the Minister of Inquiries instead here. Remove that as a potential gifts target later on. Spaniard may be a little bit flustered here. He certainly took a beating in game number 1. He has to regain his composure. Both of these players, however, quite a wealth of experience at high-level, high-pressure tournament Magic, even at Worlds itself, Paul.
Right, Javier Dominguez, the 2017 World Champion finalist.
The runner-up, the first loser, as we say in Australia. Back to Dominguez now. He finds, oh dear, this is not good from him. He's found another 4-drop. But a Goblin Chain Whirler still means that Heart of Kiran can get busy.
So this is 5 damage that Shahar's taking. 1 from the Chain Whirler's enter the battlefield effect, and then the Heart of Kiran. But does Shahar Shenhar have an answer to both that Heart of Kiran and that Chain Whirler?
So in hand for Shenhar, we mentioned the fact that he does have a Lyra Dawnbringer. Angel of Invention, just mono Angels.
Oh, Angel Tribal.
Angel Tribal here for Shahar.
And Lyra Dawnbringer with that little extra text that you don't see being utilized in Standard very often. All your other Angels get +1/+1.
Oh, look at that. So they're benefiting each other.
Yeah, they're
That's
friends.
Nice.
They're
It's
friends.
a big Angel group hug here between Angel of Invention and Dawnbringer. But of course, Shenhar's got to deploy him, and they're not cheap. Angels don't come cheap. 5 mana apiece for both of these hard-hitting heavyweights. Let's see what the next move for the Israeli champion is here. And it's going to be Lyra Dawnbringer.
All right. Now, however, Javier Dominguez has a Braid and Magma Spray here, so I think he just has the win here.
Oh, he's just got it. He's just got a double spell here. Get rid of Lyra Dawnbringer, crew up the heart. And in it comes, and we're going to game number 3 after Dominguez stitches together a win on 3 lands. He had Glory Bringers, 4-drops, he had Chandras, but he still got there.
Right, but Shahar did not have that explosive start with the refurbish. And also, one very key moment there was when Javier Dominguez was thinking about casting that Magma Spray on his creature to prevent Shahar from gaining life, but instead he opted to keep it. And the Magma Spray, in conjunction with that Abrade, gave Javier Dominguez enough removal to actually deal with that Lyra Dawnbringer that Shahar cast.
Had the Angel lived, you would think that Shenhar would have been in a truly commanding position. And as you said, Paul, this Red Black list is very short on unconditional removal.
Right.
So it's good to see that Dominguez had the tools that he needed to fight through a weakness of the deck.
Right. Yeah, that was that. I mean, again, that small decision to figure out whether or not you want to give Shahar that 1 life was absolutely crucial, because if that Lyra Dawnbringer lives, he trades with the Chain Whirler. Javier Dominguez uses a removal spell, but he still gains the 5 life, and then he can follow that up with an Angel of Invention on the following turn.
It'll be downhill from there for Dominguez, but he got it done, got across the line, and congratulations to him as we head to game number 3. Now, the wrinkle here is that this is where we're going to do our sideboarding in the top 4 of the World Championship. It means that these players playing a best of 5 match set, I should say, are going only now to update and change their decks for post-board games.
Yeah, and now taking a look at Javier Dominguez's sideboard, you're going to see a little more interaction, right? You now have access to cards like Duress to get those refurbishes out of Shahar Shenhar's hand. You have a card like Doomfall, which could help additionally to exile Lyra Dawnbringers. And, I could see a lot of the cheaper removal spells being boarded out. Although, of course, he's going to be keeping in all copies of Abrade, as that is an instant speed interaction spell against the God Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah, that main deck shatter effect is so huge in this matchup, and post-board it doesn't change too much either. A lot of top end in the sideboard of Dominguez. We'll see exactly what position he wants to take post-board. You can be sure that he's been testing this matchup extensively overnight, so we'll get a good idea of that as soon as we're across it. We'll move on now and have a look at the sideboard of Shahar Shenhar on white-blue gifts. Not a popular deck at the tournament. I think only Shahar and Owen Turtenwald playing the list. What are things looking like post-board here, Paul?
The thing about this deck is, it is very combo-like in the way the deck plays out. So you don't want to really be cutting too many pieces of the combo. But there are a couple of, strong interactive spells in a sideboard that he probably wants to be bringing in. I can imagine him bringing in Baffling End as a way to deal with Scrap Heap Scrounger and early aggression. Thopter Arrest is another card that I could see him look to bring in. And possibly even a Negate if he thinks that the game is going to go a little bit longer and he sets up a situation where he casts Refurbish with Negate backup on an Abrade that Javier Dominguez might have. That's also something to consider. Also keep in mind the red-black deck, a lot of its threats are non-creature threats. You have cards like Heart of Kirin, Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and even some of the hand disruption spells that Javier might be looking to bring in.
Well, this is what I wanted to pick up on here. I think Negate is just, it is Negate post-board. It is one of the best sideboard cards you can bring in. And especially even against red-black aggro, Paul, when you're looking at the sideboard cards that they've got, extra Chandras, Khan, things like this, Eldest Reborn perhaps for some extra late game value. Negate goes up a long way in the post-board games.
Yeah, and the thing is, so this sideboarding matchup actually gets really, really interesting because Shahar Shenhar, if you look at his sideboard, he's got the tools to kind of turn into more of an honest control deck. Look, he's got Disallows, he's got Teferi, he's got a Search for Azcanta. So if he just goes full transformation and just brings in a bunch of those control cards, what's Javier going to do? Is he going to look to slow down his deck too? Is he going to then bring in his Karns and his Siege Gang and his Chandra to just kind of grind out Shahar's late game plan, or does he want to, kind of have the pedal to the metal and just be aggressive?
We will find out. Now, the interesting piece of information we've got to share with you, of course, ladies and gentlemen, around the world, is that there is no shortage of knowledge when it comes to these players, their deck lists. They don't necessarily know their sideboard plans, but they've known both the pairing and the deck that they'll be up against since last night. And so they would have had a very busy evening at the hotel testing the absolute bejesus out of this matchup to make sure they knew exactly what they were going to be up against.
Yeah, I actually heard about Ben Stark specifically testing for his other top 4 matchup. He was trying really hard, trying his best actually to make sure that he only drew exactly 4 mountains in his mono red aggressive.
So important.
Yeah.
So
and he was
important.
it sounded like he was doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, look, it's a very difficult skill to master, drawing the exact number of plans that you need. But I too actually had a chat with Ben last night, and he was saying when he draws 0 to 1 lands, it's awful, it's terrible. And then when he draws 5 or 6, he says, I can never win.
So 3 to 4 is the
So 3 to 4.
spot.
But you know what he said when he said about drawing 3 to 4 lands? He said, it doesn't feel like I'm playing Magic. It feels like I'm playing a different game entirely. If you want to see what Ben Stark has brought to the table with his mono-red aggro deck, 22 mountain aggro, you're going to get to see it in the second semi-final once this one is in the books. And of course, the action will continue until we crown a world champion here in Las Vegas. Looks like we're ready to go now as Dominguez takes a mulligan for game number 3. These guys tied up at 1-1. Shenhar stuck with his opening 7. And a duress going to kick things off here, Paul.
Yeah, so he did bring in the additional interactive spells. Shahar Shenhar has a lot of deck manipulation spells in cards like Strategic Planning and Chart of Course. And of course, he's also got cards like Refurbish. And, these players have access to each other's sideboard. So, he could totally expect Shahar to also bring in cards like the Baffling End and Thopter Arrest that he had in his board.
Now, I don't think Dominguez will be going after that God Pharaoh's gift there.
Oh, no.
I think he'd prefer it were in the hand of Shenhar. But we'll see what he wants to go after. Interesting to see that Baffling End has come in almost certainly against the, things like Scrap Heap Scrounger there.
Right, and I think, what he took here would have basically largely depends on what Javier's game plan is with his hand. Let's say he had something like a Scrap Heap Scrounger and wanted to be aggressive. I could see him taking that Baffling End, but it doesn't look like he's got a 2-drop. It looks like he's got a Pia Nalar in his hand, and because of that, he just wants to make sure Shahar Shenhar can't get his combo set up.
So lots of hand disruption here for the Spaniard. We'll see another duress pick apart the hand of Shenhar. Let's see if anything has changed. Yes, it has. You can see Champion of Wits and Minister of Inquiries, the pickups here. So I don't know. I mean, it looks like the straight up choice here is Baffling End. You're never discarding the gift.
Yeah,
right?
and Shahar Shenhar finding the Champion of Wits was actually huge because Javier Dominguez absolutely does not want to get that God Pharaoh's gift into the graveyard, but Shahar is going to be able to do it as duress cannot take the Champion of Wits. It will take this Baffling End. Next turn, Shahar will follow it up by playing Champion of Wits, hoping to draw Refurbish, and putting that God Pharaoh's gift into his graveyard.
Finds a Thopter Arrest off the top here to Shenhar, and I think, he's got a decent shot of hitting that refurbish, especially as he's going to draw 3 cards before the beginning of his 4th turn. 2 extra ones coming here. Here's a Plains and a Charter Course. So not what he wanted to see, but he will be able to discard that GPG, and that's a critical development here.
Yeah, and it's but however, it's still not the worst. I mean, Javier Dominguez doesn't really have a whole lot of pressure, and seeing that Javier Dominguez actually has that Swamp in play is huge, because that means Javier Dominguez cannot play a Goblin Chain Whirler on the 3rd turn.
And this is not a great Doomfall either, as we see Thopter Arrest and Chart a Course, the choices here for Dominguez. And, I mean, you know, we're talking about... it's written there on your screen. Red-black aggro. Where's the aggro part here, Paul?
Well, I mean, it looks like he sideboarded into kind of a slower, more grindy red-black mid-range deck. You see the Duresses, you see the Doomfalls, and, you know... the red-black deck does have access to a lot of very strong, resilient threats, and maybe that's what he's looking to be. He's looking to really just maximize on the disruption against Shahar Shenhar.
Hasn't put a lot of pressure on just yet, Dominguez, and with a 2nd copy of Pia Nala in hand, I think Shenhar...
Oh, did you see Shahar's draw?
He's in a great spot, and he's found the refurbish, just as we said. He drew a fair few cards.
Look at this. 2 Duresses and a Doomfall. But you know what hand disruption doesn't stop? The top of your deck. Refurbish off the top here. I mean, sure, Shahar didn't have the best creature to get back, but that Minister of Inquiries has haste. That allows Shahar Shenhar to put more creatures into his graveyard for more fuel for that God Pharaoh's gift.
And he's immediately going to do exactly that here, Paul, as we see a 2nd refurbished. Another Minister hits the bin there. And that's not exactly what Shenhar's wanting to see, but he's still in a good position here. Looks like another Doomfall off the top here for Dominguez. And it's going to go after the hand. Maybe exile that God Pharaoh's gift. Thopter Arrest, the other option here for the Spaniard. It's going to be the Thopter's Arrest now. And an attack now with a fire-breathing Thopter coming across for 2. Sending a very clear message here is Dominguez.
Oh, wow. And that's just more cards.
Mate, look at this. Look at
Shahar's
this.
going to be able to put 6 cards into his graveyard with strategic planning in conjunction with that Minister of Inquiry. Sorry, 5 cards.
No creature off the strategic planning.
But he still has 1 energy with that Minister of Inquiries. Oh, and he has that Charter Course as well.
Charter Course here. I think that was another Minister there.
Okay, that counts.
It does. I mean, technically, yes, it does count. It's not exactly what Shenhar's looking for. He wants one of those hard-hitting creatures. He wants something like an Angel of Invention here, but he just can't find it. Paul, we've just been given the sideboarding plans of both of these players. As Shenhar's hitting the tank here, why don't you tell us what his sideboard's looking like?
So it looks like Shahar Shenhar opted to take some of the clunkier cards out of his deck. He actually removed the Castouts, the 1 Fumigate, and a Field of Ruin. He shaved the land for 2 copies of Baffling End and 2 Thopter Arrests.
Lyra Dawnbringer hits the bin thanks to the Minister of Inquiries, and that is what the Doctor ordered here, as we see a slight downgrade from the original, but still, you'll take it if you want it. But no, Shenhar instead going for a 2nd Minister of Inquiries.
Yeah, it looks like he just wants to continue filling up his graveyard here with that Minister of Inquiries.
So the 2nd Minister now takes his seat and is going to get busy. No, thinks better of it.
Well, I mean, Shahar Shenhar, to be fair, is currently sitting at 18 life. I think, you know, he's the aggressor here. He's going to have all these giant, hasty creatures, and all Javier has in play is that Pia Nala. It is going to be really hard for Javier to actually come back from this.
And he's not even going to try to here, as Shenhar picks up another game, and he is 1 game away from taking out the match here, Paul. It looks like things really have worked out well for Shenhar. We talked about the fact that Dominguez boarded into a more controlling, a slower, a grindier version of his deck, but the complete lack of pressure gave Shenhar free reign, more or less, to just run roughshod over his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, taking a look at the way Javier Dominguez sideboarded here, he actually cut all of his Bomat Couriers. And now this might be a thing that he chose to do while being on the draw. I could very much see him looking to bring the Bomat Couriers back in on the play. I mean, that's something that I would very much consider. Is that what he's doing here? Let's take a look.
We can see here, my friends, from our little bird's eye view secret hidden God mode camera, what exactly Shenhar and Dominguez are working with, and of course all the latest sideboard plans will be brought your way as soon as we have them. But in exchange for things like the Bomat Courier, the Hazards that have been taken out, what's he chosen to bring in?
He's brought in 2 copies of Doomfall, 2 copies of Duress, a Chandra, a Magma Spray, and a Pia Nalar. So interesting. He brought in the Magma Spray, which you would think, wait, why would I want to do that against a combo deck? Well, one of Shahar's primary enablers is the Minister of Inquiries. On top of that, Champion of Wits is a very powerful card that in the late game, you know, Shahar can actually just eternalize to get a lot of value. But Magma Spray exiles the Champion of Wits, preventing it from coming back with the eternalize effect.
Neither player making any significant changes to the changes they've already made. So Dominguez not repositioning himself, and Shenhar choosing not to bring in things like the negate that we just perhaps discussed, other cards that were available to him there. So it looks like a pretty straight, clean cut down the middle sideboard plan for both of them. You know, as we've said, these guys would have come into this match knowing exactly how they wanted to play it out.
Shahar Shenhar just opting for the pure tap out control deck here. You know, he's going to have some additional ways to interact early. Then, you know, he's going to look to do his thing. You know, use the refurbish to get back his Godfarer's Gift. But if that doesn't work, you know, plan B. Play some Ladder Dawnbringers, play some Angel of Inventions.
Get her done.
Yeah, draw some cards off Champion of Wits, eternalize it. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways that this blue-white deck can actually just grind people out.
I think it's important to note here that what Shenhar is up to post-board really aligns with what you were saying about not altering the thrust of his deck too much. It's a combo list. You can't afford to change out too many main deck cards.
Right. You know, cards like, you know, oftentimes when people pick up these combo decks for the first time, I think one of the most difficult things to do is actually sideboarding, where you're like, you know what, I don't actually know what the most important cards are, but the cards I'm bringing in are pretty sweet, so what do I do? So it's like,
bringing 10 of them.
And so then a lot of people, what they tend to do is, you know, they shave. They're like, I'm going to take out one Minister, one Chart of Course, you know, something like that. But, you know, not the case here. Shahar wants to, you know, keep his deck as streamlined, as lean as possible, and make sure that he has, you know, optimal chances of actually getting that Godfarer's Gift onto the battlefield on turn 4.
Well, this sharp young man is just one game win away from another chance at a world title here, and it's going well for him already with Dominguez down to 6. Shahar Shenhar, no stranger to World Championship finals. And I tell you what, he's hungry for it. He's hungry for it. He's come back since his last win 5 years ago. He's grown a lot, you know, professionally and personally, and it would be great to see him in that seat. But I tell you what, it'd be great to see Dominguez there as well. This guy, heartbreaking conclusion to his World Championship last year in Boston, Paul, as he went down to one of the all-time greats, the Hall of Famer Huey Jensen. And we know that Dominguez is not going to give up the fight or the final whistle blows.
And I really, you know, actually, the pieces that were made on these two players, it was hard not to root for either of them. You hear the Javier, you saw the Javier one, you're like, oh man,
I'm gonna go
this guy's a really nice guy. You know, I really want him to win. Then you watch the Shahar thing, it's like kind of like a story of redemption almost. You know, he was a 2-time world champion, and once you win once you beat the best players in the world twice in back-to-back years, you're like, what else is there left for me?
At the age of 19 as well.
Right. And so, you know, he kind of took the game a little less seriously, and his results as a, you know, kind of suffered. But, you know, now he's back here, and he's, you know, so far 2 for 2 in top 4s, trying to make it a third.
Both players down to 6 here, and it looks like they're both going to keep as well. Dominguez scries one to the bottom. Shahar Shenhar considering what he wants to do with his top card after mulliganing down to 6. Both of them going below decks, and we're off to the races in what may be potentially the final game in this semi if Shenhar can get across the line. And Bomat Courier back in on the play.
Yeah, back in on the play. That is something that I kind of expected, or, you know, thought that there was a decent chance for Javier to have once he's on the play. Shahar Shenhar has, you know, less ways to block, and Javier can have just kind of more permanence on the battlefield. He wants to be a little more aggressive on the play, but I would expect the Bomad to once again enter the sideboard if Javier does manage to take it to game 5 and be on the draw.
This is great stuff from Dominguez. We see the 1-2 punch of these artifact creatures. Bomat Courier into Scrap Heap Scrounger, but check this out. Let's have a look at this heat, Paul, because Javier Dominguez, a braid in hand as well. The perfect answer to an early Godfarer's Gift, which you see now entering the battlefield of the Israeli player.
And now Shahar Shenhar, Chart of Chorus, you know, Godfarer's Gift in the graveyard, trying to set up that refurbished play. What Javier really wants is to draw a threat this turn, to really apply max pressure to Shahar Shenhar, but he doesn't find it.
Doesn't find one. Instead, in hand, he has Chandra, Torch of Defiance by the look of things, Glorybringer, and a Braid. Let's see how Shenhar can get himself back into this. Ether Hub, the play.
And look at that.
Oh.
Shahar is playing the I really just want to draw 2 more lands game here. His hand is just Angel
Angels.
Tribal.
Yeah, we hark the Herald Angels sing right now because Shenhar is being deafened by this heavenly chorus. He's decided to boot 2 of them into the bin, and I think that's a wise choice.
Right. He did find 2 lands. I guess there was the greedy consideration of just keeping one of those lands and thinking you would draw a land in the next 2 turns. But since his hand already has 2 of the 5-mana angels, I think this is the better line.
And those Angels of Invention, I mean, they'll come back one more again, no worries at all, as soon as Shenhar finds himself a refurbish. But the Angel B plan is certainly fine here, and obviously all of them huge, life-linking, able to stabilize the board nicely. Dominguez now, he has to apply some pressure, has to find a way to start getting his snoot back into this game, something like a Chandra or a Glory
He needs
Bringer.
land number 4 for Chandra, and he found it. Okay, so that was really, really big. Javier, again, needed to apply additional pressure here. Taking a look at Shahar's hand, which just basically has all angels in it, Javier does need to kind of get Shahar dead before he gets the 5 mana. So he's going to play that Chandra. I think he's just trying to figure out what he wants to do with it. Does he want to play the Chandra, use the minus ability to get the Champion of Wits off the battlefield? I think that's probably what he's going to look to do so that he could just put additional cards underneath that Bomat Courier.
I think so, because the only other option really is to go upstairs and do 2 to Shenhar, which is not a great turn 4, even if it leaves that Chandra on the table. I like this. I like this aggression from Dominguez, the Spaniard getting on the front foot. He's going to swish that Willow around, tell Shenhar that he's got to earn this victory off him.
Yeah, and Javier's hand is fantastic. He's got that Abrade for a potential God Pharaoh's Gift. On top of that, he's got a Glory Bringer. Now, he doesn't have land number 5, but remember, as you can see on the Chandra Torch of Defiance on the battlefield, Chandra does have 4 different abilities, one of which
Secret
can
mode.
give you mana.
The hidden mode.
Yeah.
The flavor text mode in the middle of the card there, as we see Charter Course now for Shenhar. Let's see what kind of waters he's heading towards here. He's got a land to play and still double Angel in hand.
Yeah, so this looks like he's setting up a Charter Course into land Baffling End on one of Javier Dominguez's creatures. Now, Javier Dominguez has a Bomat Courier with 4 cards underneath it, but at the same time, Scrap Heap Scrounger is presenting a much bigger clock, much more potent clock. And given that Shahar's at 10, he might opt to go for the Scrap Heap Scrounger here.
Looks like we may see Shahar Shenhar deploy a baffling end here, my friends. Yep, let's head down to 2221 Baker Street because there is a mystery afoot. How could have this Bomat Courier disappeared? We'll never know.
Wow,
We'll
and
never know.
that was ideal here. So now Javier can actually choose to play it really safe here. He can use Chandra, get 2 mana, play Glorybringer, attack for 7, and still have mana to keep up Abrade if Shahar manages to find a refurbish for the God Pharaoh's Gift in his graveyard.
Going to do exactly that as well, Paul, as we see the big Dargan get busy along with the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Dominguez pulling further and further ahead here as Shahar Shenhar finds a refurbish with those 2 angels in hand. What can he do?
I mean, at this point, if you want to play around the Abrade, I think you're supposed to just hard cast an angel. But what is Shahar going to look to do? Oh, he's going for the refurbish.
He's going for the refurbish, and Abrade should seal the deal here. Shahar Shenhar packs them up. Time for game number 5. Masterful play from the Spaniard there. He really put on a much better performance this time around, Paul. A great combination of early pressure and relevant disruption.
Right, and now we're going to turn it around, though. Being on the play is extremely important in this matchup. Now that Shahar's back on the play, I think he has a reasonable shot. Because imagine, flip that game around, right? If Shahar did have that extra time, had that life total buffer, he could have just started running out those angels, and it might have been difficult for Javier to deal with all of them.
Yeah, the fact that the Glorybringer came down before the angels did, the fact that the sort of, the impetus, the tempo was always with Dominguez, it meant that he could use his cards more effectively, more efficiently. And at the end of the day, Shahar Shenhar stuck there with a bunch of cards that didn't do anything for him.
Like the 100% land win.
Given that Bomat Courier did so, did a lot of work and was extremely threatening, I wonder if Javier is going to stick to his sideboard plan of being a little bit slower on the draw with a lot more hand disruption, or if he's still going to choose to go, if he's just going to offer the Bomat Courier plan and try to be quick.
He is. We can confirm he is changing some cards in and out. The Bomat Couriers are out.
All right.
They are out.
Stick to the game plan.
I mean, he's run the numbers. He's been crunching and munching them all night long. It looks like Rekindling Phoenix is going to be brought in this time around. Paul, what are your thoughts there?
I think they're okay, but a lot of the removal that the blue-white deck has
right?
is their exile effects, and the flyers are bigger than Rekindling Phoenix. But I think, Javier has likely played this matchup along with his teammates enough to realize that Bomat Courier just gets brickwalled way too often. But look, he is staring long and hard at them. He's
thinking
like,
about it again.
They're so good turn one.
He's thinking about it. You can see Shahar Shenhar cool and collected, but Dominguez is flipping through that sideboard like there's no tomorrow. Ultimately, you can see there the Bomat Couriers have been put back in their little hidey hole. That deck box has been put away. And so the final configuration now with Rekindling Phoenix in it for the Spaniard. I don't know about this. I'm very, very hesitant to fault the approach that Dominguez is putting together here. But typically the Phoenix is best against other red decks, right? Not against white exile effects.
Right, and I think, basically he just had a couple of flex slots available. If he determines that the Bomat Courier is bad, like actively bad on the draw, he goes, okay, well, what's the next best card in my sideboard that I can have in my deck? And it looks like he decided he prefers Rekindling Phoenix over a card like Hazoret the Fervent. And that does make some sense. Phoenix does fly, and also Hazoret the Fervent doesn't actually attack as easily when you're kind of increasing your mana curve and adding a lot more expensive spells in your deck.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you start bringing in these higher cost cards, the things like the Khans, the Siege Gang Commanders, perhaps maybe extra copies of Chandra, and all of a sudden, yeah, Hazoret comes down as basically a very, very sleepy girl. She's not getting busy.
Yeah.
She's not attacking for 5, and that's where you want to be.
Yeah, where I've seen Hazoret really shine is basically in the mirror, right? There's no way to actually remove the Hazoret. It's, both decks play a ton of removal, and it's last threat standing that kind of wins. And Hazoret usually is the one that stands on top of all those cards at the end of the day.
Looks like we're getting very close to the beginning of the end here for one of these players, Shahar Shenhar, Javier Dominguez, in the semi-final of the World Championships for Magic the Gathering, live from Las Vegas, USA. My name's Riley Knight, joined by Paul Cheon. We're going to be guiding you through the very last game in this semi-final matchup. Coming up after this, Ben Stark facing off against Gregor Kowalski, a transatlantic bout as the Hall of Famer from America goes up against Poland's finest. But we've got to get through this one first, and we'll see how things are looking in the opening hands of these two players.
So this is the amount of stress that you will have. Top 4 worlds, Game 5. Javier Dominguez forgot to draw his opening 7.
Yeah. Oh, no, look, this is, this is high-level stuff here. This is high-level stuff here for Dominguez. Like, I don't even need it, mate. I'll beat you on 0. I'll beat you on 0.
And Javier's hand is actually looks a bit mediocre here. So he's got a bunch of creatures, but he's got no disruption. He's got a couple of Goblin Chainwhirlers and a Heart of Kirin with some mana. I mean, it's hard to ship a hand with just 3 lands and a bunch of spells, but at the same time, can you actually win without any disruption? And taking a look at Shahar's hand, it's got everything. It's got the goods.
Oh, it's got exactly what he needs here. He's got a discard outlet. He's got both the Refurbish and the Godpharaoh's Gift, a way to buffer his life total with Sunscourge Champion, and the lands to pull it all together. He doesn't even need those cantrips. He's just doing it au naturel. Look at this. Duress off the top here for Dominguez.
That is a big, big draw of Duress from Javier Dominguez. And given that Shahar Shenhar here is going to discard Godpharaoh's Gift plus one of the big creatures in his hand, I think Javier does probably have to fire off this Duress instead of playing something like a Goblin Chainwhirler.
So he's going to do it here. We see Dragon Skull Summit generates a black mana, and that is so important. We have a game on our hands, ladies and gentlemen, here, because Javier Dominguez, by the skin of his teeth, making sure that refurbish doesn't crash the party with an Angel of Invention.
Right, but at the same time, this is really setting Javier Dominguez back on tempo. Of course, he had to make the play because it was going to be very difficult for him to win off that refurbish, but he's not adding pressure to the battlefield, and Shahar is able to further sculpt his hand with that Champion of Wits and strategic planning in hand.
And now we'll see, as you say, these blue cards, these filtering effects, these velocity cards, if you like, find him that second refurbish, if he can't just channel.
Oh, never mind. He had a Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Oh, he's got some extra pressure as well. So here we come with a big attack in for 4. Shenhar off the top. Doesn't find what he needs.
This is so awkward. So now, I mean, I guess Shahar does have to play that the Champion of Wits, but now he's leaving himself very exposed to Goblin Chainwhirler. Shahar really needs to find land and refurbish, and I think he whiffed on both.
Oh no, the big whiffsky here for the Israeli player. And let's see what he wants to discard. Looks like Sunscourge Champion is one of those cards, and another GPG.
Oh, and this is going to be a huge turn from Javier Dominguez. He's got Goblin Chain Whirler. He's going to cast it this turn to get both of the champion wits off the battlefield, and then also attacking for 7. This is
look at this. A straight up 3-for-1 here as Goblin Chain Whirler gets busy in the heart of Kieran, and across for 7. Shenhar on Nightmare Mode.
This is a lethal attack.
7.
This is a lethal attack next turn.
So, Shenhar, with a perfect opening grip, Paul, is now facing lethal out of nowhere. The best he can do is a strategic planning. He's got a Baffling End in hand, so that's going to stem the bleeding a little bit. But on 8 life, what a precarious position for him.
So now he has to fire off a Baffling End here. I mean, he is at 8. But keep in mind, Javier Dominguez has another Goblin Chain Whirler in hand. This is just lethal.
This
is
over.
8 damage.
It's all over, Red Rover. Javier Dominguez is going to be in the final of another World Championship. 1 damage upstairs takes you to 7. An attack with the heart and the Goblin gets it done. And Javier Dominguez is our first finalist at the 2018 Magic the Gathering World Championship. Hats off to the Spaniard.
Look at him. Look at just the relief, the amount of relief. I mean, went to 5. I mean, we just had some really big back and forth games, very swingy games. But
I don't find it disrespectful at all.
yeah.
And Shahar Shenhar, you can tell this man has done a lot of growing up. This guy, he's sitting here with a smile on his face, happy to be here, Paul.
For which?
I didn't have the refurbish. I did have a 4th land.
Ah,
I
okay.
charted into a strategic, or into a, like, still no refurbish, and then I played Baffling End, and then I drew refurbish on that turn.
Yeah,
But I was planning on playing Lyra anyways,
Yeah.
so I died to a Braid,
Yeah.
because you had Glorybringer.
Yeah, my hand was Chandra with a Ringer and a Braid.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, maybe if I go to the Braid's obvious. At this point, it was like, I'm not gonna die. Like, if I play Chandra, there's a chance you go land with Vision. Just close the game. I think I have to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, good luck for real.
And a post-mortem there for Dominguez and Shenhar. And I have to say at this stage, what a performance from the young Israeli player. He's really put on a clinic throughout the weekend. He's got to be proud of his result. He's done really well. But ultimately, Javier Dominguez in the final, back-to-back final here. We'll see if he can get across the line this time around, Paul.
Yeah, and it's always just so nice being able to actually listen in because, you know, often, this was one of the biggest matches, you know, of their career. And despite Shahar losing, they're still talking about how to get better, what the optimal lines were, why certain players played the way that they did. You know, and you just listen and I'm like, if we just have the mics on them all day, you don't even need me here.
Yeah, that's
you know,
it.
because those guys just will give you the highest level of commentary in terms of just how those games were played.
Yeah, they'll
out.
put us out of a job, mate.
Yeah,
They're going to get rid of those table mics. They're going to be out of it.
Take off those mics. Take off the mics.
But I think the important takeaway here, Paul, is that these players, even at the peak of their game, even at the very highest level of competition, they're still learning. And I think that's a really important thing to take away.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Magic is just one this is the best game in the world, right?
It is
Just so many levels of complexity, so many different ways to play the game. I mean, it's just there's so many different permutations with all the different cards. And that's what's, you know, kept people playing for the last 25 years.
That's right. You never stop learning. You never stop learning, my friends. And right now, the next thing that we need to learn is who is going to be facing Javier Dominguez in the final of Worlds this year. So we are going to take a quick break. And on the other side of it, we're going to break and set for the next semi-final from Las Vegas. Stick around, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back live from Worlds after this.
Trust me, it's safe. Mostly safe.
There you see it, the trophy waits for the winner of the 2018 Magic the Gathering World Championship. One semifinal down and one more to go. Hello and welcome back to the news desk here at the World Championship. Maria Bertholdi, Simon Gertzen, and Rich Hagan. And oh boy, talk about a critical duress, Simon.
Yeah, that was a super close game, super close match actually. The duress to take out the refurbish because it was threatening to just win the game on turn 4.
Yeah, duress has been ruining people since at least 1999, so 20 years on. In fact, Shahar was barely alive the first time people started getting their hand torn to pieces by duress. And now here we are, 2018. It looked, I mean, his hand was fantastic, Simon, for Shahar in that last game.
Absolutely, and you could actually see how important it was to get pressure down for Dominguez, because just duress doesn't do the job. But if you have Heart of Kieran, Scrap Heap, Scrounger, Chain Roller, then you have a quick clock plus the disruption. Actually, there was another game, I believe 2 duresses and 2 Doomfalls drawn for Dominguez. No pressure. Then the white-blue gift deck wins anyway.
Brian David Marshall is standing by with more words from our winner.
Thanks, Maria. I'm here with Javier Dominguez. And Javier, where does that Game 4 decision rank for you in terms of sweats in your Magic career? You can play the Chandra, but you have the Abrade in hand. Talk to us about what was going on there and what you were thinking about.
Well, I would rate it quite high, of course. Like, I don't know how it looked from the outside. Like, maybe it looks super obvious, maybe not. I don't really know, because sometimes you're in the game and you have to take a call from tournament live. Like, like the outcome of the tournament for you is likely going to depend on that decision. So even though sometimes it looks like easy, for you it's like not, because everything, all the tournaments on the line. Yeah, I mean, like when you're playing, you're trying not to lose, trying to win. And this time I just had to choose between like playing the Braid or the Chandra. But I mean, if I play the Chandra, it's like classic tap out, where you don't know if you're gonna have another turn. But if you get another turn, you're likely gonna win. And yeah, I was just going for the Chandra because I just felt like if he had the good cards, Shahar will be able to maneuver me anyway, because I just will be in the same spot next turn, and he will identify that, and then he will just craft the game he wanted to play. Meanwhile, if I play the Chandra, it's like cross fingers, hope he doesn't have it, and if he doesn't have it, I have a commanding position because I killed the blocker, and I could also go Chandra up a Braid, but like I don't know, I just felt like saving the Braid, which I don't really know if it was like a right call, but well, I just chose to tap out and it worked well. But that seconds between pressing the turn and him tapping and drawing, for me, it felt like ages. I was like, don't have it. Yeah, it was a very intense moment.
Now, in Game 5, he had it, but you drew a pretty timely duress. Talk to me about how that last game played out.
Yeah, I think last game well perfect for me. Like, I had to draw on tap land on turn 3 to go duress plus Scrounger, so I could pressure his life. And yeah, duress dealing with the Furbish, and me having the Triangular Chain. After that, I knew I would be able to attack for like 8 next turn and then 8 next turn. So yeah, just everything went right for me, for sure.
All right. One more match, you're back to the finals. 2 years in a row. Such a great job. We've talked about this. If you're talking to me multiple times in a tournament, things are probably going very well for you. Do you think you have one more conversation in you?
Hopefully. Yeah.
All right. Javier Dominguez, good luck in the finals here at the 2018 Magic the Gathering World Championship.
Thank you, Brian.
Absolutely phenomenal performance to come back 2 years in a row and make it to the final 2 years in a row. Paul, you were in the booth. Great to have you with us here for your expert insight, as always. Again, you're looking at Shahar and thinking everything you need. You're looking on Javier's side. He had to really think hard about whether to keep in the end. But as soon as that duress comes, the whole game changed.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing. Oftentimes, when you play a combo deck, right? You need all the pieces to come together. And sure, your opening hand looks great, but if your opponent has that 1 or 2 pieces of disruption, especially a disruptive aggro deck, everything can just crumble. And that's exactly what you saw in that game.
All right, so Javier Dominguez is through to the World Championship final, but we need him to play against somebody. Maria, let's head into semi-final 2.
All right, Gregor Kowalski is the first player we're going to take a little bit of a quicker look at here before we get into semifinal number 2. Gregor Kowalski, fantastic season this year, 191 lifetime pro points, no Pro Tour top 8s yet, $66,000 in lifetime earnings. Grand Prix champ, Lyon, 2018.
Yeah, also worth mentioning, 5-1 in draft, but 6-2 in standard. All our top 4 players went 6-2 in the standard round, so in good shape.
All right, let's take a look at the deck that Gregor has chosen to bring to this tournament, and it's the most popular one, red-black.
So Paul, what's going on with this deck here? Very similar to what we've already seen in action with Javier?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. Instead, he did choose to play Unlicensed Disintegration over main deck Doomfalls. But all in all, same strategy. Curve out, play removal spells, and cast some Goblin Chain Orders for some victories.
All right, well, let's take a look at who his opponent will be. It is none other than Hall of Famer Ben Stark. There you see him there on your screen. 562 lifetime pro points, 5 Pro Tour top 8s, more than $300,000 in lifetime earnings. And the deck that he's brought to the table is slightly different. It's mono red, Paul. So talk to me a little bit about how this deck differs from red-black.
So this deck is very, very much lower to the ground. Ton of 1-drops, and this deck basically, I've seen Ben just empty out his hand by turn 4 very frequently. This is kind of the initial iteration of the mono red aggro decks that we saw in the past. Hazoret the Fervent, the full 4 copies, empty out your hand. This deck can very consistently have Hazoret attack for 5 on turn 4, and Ben was basically saying if you can just play 3 to 4 lands, you can just win very, very easily.
So Ben Stark is someone who is known as one of the great limited players of all time, but one of the most telling interviews I heard this weekend was when he talked about iterating on this deck over and over weeks and weeks and months to arrive at this point where he was comfortable that this is what he wanted to bring to the World Championship. So many players have talked about their preparations, 8 hours a day on Magic Online, there's 50 leagues of that, but I was really taken by just how focused Ben was on Constructed.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Ben has probably gotten, hundreds of Dominario drafts under his belt. I feel like, at least when it comes to preparation for this tournament, he didn't really have to focus very much on the limited portion, allowing him to basically channel all of his energy into making sure he had the right constructed deck.
All right, well, we talked to Ben Stark a little earlier this weekend. Let's hear from him.
I'm Ben Stark. Played in my first Pro Tour in London in 1999, right about my 16th birthday. Here we are, 20 years later, top 4 of the World Championships. This is my second World's top 4. I've got 5 PT top 8s, 2 Grand Prix wins. I'm in the Hall of Fame, long-time, lifetime pro. I'm gonna be honest, titles don't mean very much to me like they do to a lot of people. I got into Magic because I love strategy and I love games. I come to the professional tournaments to play the hardest opponents and the best games. Of course I want to win, but it's not about first having some kind of special meaning to me. I just want to go play my best and hopefully play great games and, get to experience great Magic. This is only my second time playing Worlds, and this is the 7th one. It's really hard to qualify for. Everyone's good. And I mean, look, there's all different skill levels at Magic. People play Magic for different reasons. And even when you go to a Grand Prix or Pro Tour, everyone knows what they're doing. But some people are really, really good. Some people are okay. People make mistakes. Magic's really hard. Worlds, everybody's great. I do think I play my best in tournaments like Worlds because I tend to be somebody who gets up for these big matches. I come to tournaments because I want to play Owen and Seth, not because I want to grind out a min cash at the back tables, So when you're playing in Worlds and all your opponents are great, there are all these people that you look up to and respect, and you're impressed by their game, that kind of gets me into my zone where I'm able to play my best game. I mean, this is a 50-50 matchup against one of the best players in the world, so hopefully it's my day to draw exactly 4 lands, lots of 1-mana cards in turn 4 Hazoret.
And so Dominguez awaits in the final. Who will he be against? Will it be Gregor Kowalski of Poland? Will it be Ben Stark of the United States? Best 3 out of 5 will give us the answer. Semi-final 2 starts right now.